Hi, I'm Ken.
And I'm Yasmine. And
And
this
this
is
is
Conversations
Conversations
with
with Ken
Ken
and
and
Yas.
Yasmine.
Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Ken and Yasmin. And today we have Kelly O'Malley. Kelly is a proud Texan and happy Angelina. She's an actress, producer, and passionate advocate for mental health. Kelly moved to Los Angeles to study at the Stella Adler Academy of Acting, Los Angeles, after graduating from Southern Methodist University with a double major in religious studies and film and media arts. Kelly started A Light in Dark Places in 2016 to use the arts to bring awareness, resources, and hope to those affected by suicide. Her father had taken his life a few years before, and the stigma, shame, and isolation that came along with her grief created in her a need to break down the stigma surrounding mental health, not just for herself, but for others who struggle. And I have had two plays in the Light and Dark Places Festival the first 2 years. And I've seen Kelly perform as an actress, and she's amazing. And I would just like to thank Kelly for taking the time to interview with us. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. So, Kelly, what I wanted to talk to you about first was Southern Methodist University. SMU, when I was in high school, had probably one of the top 10 theater schools in the country. And with you going to SMU, choosing the majors of religious studies and film and media arts, what led you in that direction?
Right. So I kind of fell into religious studies. I'll explain. I'll start. So I originally wanted to do communications. Like I'm someone who grew up, I love singing, I love choir, I love movies, but I never understood that actually acting or being an artist was like something that I could do. Like I was growing up being told like, you're going to get a business degree. And so for me, like the next best thing was communications. And that didn't work out because, going to college is hard. And my parents had just been divorced and it was messy and I was depressed and I got a B- instead of, and they said, oh, well, you can't be a communications major then. So then I went to film and media arts, which at the time was called CCTV.
Wow.
It changed like halfway through. And I loved it. I love storytelling. And but as I went along, I found that I felt maybe jealous of the theater students a bit. And I wasn't maybe not equipped to really recognize why that was, but I felt a little tension there. And I think it just came down to I still wasn't doing exactly what I wanted to be doing. And I found with film and media arts, I really loved, I loved editing, but what I loved about those classes were the actual analysis classes and genre classes and getting to write and explore that aspect, not so much the being on set and the technical aspect. And so there was that. When my dad died, I ended up taking a year off. And when I through that year, I had this epiphany of these are real people. I can do this. There's no one stopping me from doing this. So I took a theater class my final semester, and I just fell in love. The grad student who was teaching it, I spoke to her. She gave me extra work, doubled up my assignments, and then eventually helped me figure out where I wanted to go. So yeah, it was kind of this amazing thing, and at the same time being it was weird because I was graduating. It's I'm not gonna go through another undergrad. I already have two majors at this point. This is getting ridiculous. And then with the religious studies, I took some classes because I was curious, and I was getting more active in church. And what I really appreciate about religious studies is it's not theology. It's using religion as a lens to look at like different cultures, socioeconomic, political sort of aspects of these cultures. And I loved it. And it really made me question and learn things. And I think in some ways become stronger and become very comfortable with just asking questions and maybe being wrong and like learning from other people and really getting to explore different people and like how these things come to be and how we all connect. So I loved it, and I loved the critical thinking aspect of it, and like getting to write research papers, and like to me like that's art, like too, like finding ways to like weave your arguments and like the best way to structure or something. And like it was, I'm a nerd, I guess, but it was really fun and challenging for me.
Kelly, when you said storytelling was always a very much a part of your life, your creative soul, you know, the religious texts and the stories from those texts, it makes sense being in that major as well.
I love it. I loved it so much, and learning, like I said, it's fascinating.
Did you grow up in an extremely religious household?
I grew up in a Catholic household.
Okay.
So Irish Catholic. And then in college, I started like going to, I'm deconstructing now, but I was at the time going to evangelical like spaces because I liked the lecture style. I felt like I could learn more. And that was weird because growing up, like being Catholic, I was told all the time by my Protestant friends, like, oh, you're not Christian. It's like, yeah, I am. And so I kind of found that on my own. The second half of the Catholicism was really instilled, and now I'm probably, I don't know what I am. Like I don't know where I fit in the categories of within Christianity right now, but yeah. So yeah, it ended up being kind of my own path. I think I was like primed to be where I am now, just like because like when I was 10. I saw Jesus Christ Superstar for the first time. And so I've always been like, oh my God, I love this. And I have friends who would be like, oh, you can't watch that. Why? I understand that it's creative, but it's asking real questions. Like it's always been something that I wasn't really exposed to different religions until college.
Okay.
Yeah. And then now, like, my boyfriend's Jewish. Like I never thought I'd be with someone outside of my faith, like at a certain point in my life. And I'm so happy. like I learned so much, like it's so cool to like learn different traditions and stuff.
Do you feel that people in our range and younger are looking to religion now as a result of this past year? Questioning more, seeking more, or do you think people are turning away from spirituality or organized religion?
Well, for me in my circle, I've just noticed a lot of us are deconstructing, and that's such a broad term. So I don't mean it, and some of them are, but I don't mean it in the sense that like completely like leaving the religion, but really questioning. And I think especially this year and frankly, the past 5 years have been really eye-opening for a lot of us who were raised one way, and then to see these morals, these people throw out their morals for politics, and it's suddenly like it for me, it always felt like a betrayal and like I don't know who you are now, and it's so yeah, for me it's just more like I've just noticed a lot of questioning. In a lot of ways, like my closest friends aren't religious, or they kind of have their own religion. Yeah, I mean, I know like within the church, people talk a lot about how like our generation are like, they're leaving. And it's kind of like, well, we're leaving. I would argue I'm leaving, but I'm following Jesus out the door. Like I'm disturbed here. So it's yeah. That's just my experience, though.
So Kelly, what prompted you to move to Los Angeles?
I had to run away from my dead dad, if I can be honest. Yeah, I felt like I was dying there still. Yeah, it was hard. I was living 15 minutes from my childhood home and not being able to go home and stuff. And so acting was like a really great catalyst to get me into a new place and into like a community. So I came out here. I knew I needed to move, and then I picked Los Angeles based on going to Stella Adler.
What drew you to Stella Adler?
The technique. I wasn't interested in looking at my past, and I think it can be really harmful, especially with trauma, to have to dig it up. And Stella like really emphasizes imagination work, and so that's the main draw for me, that I was curious in exploring that, because most of what I had learned had been a little bit practical aesthetics, which I'm taking classes on now because I really like that technique. But then also like it seemed like a lot of the conservatories were not geared towards what I needed. So
you wanted to do theater?
I just love all of it. I want to do all of it. So yeah, my training is mainly in theater. So I've been transitioning and like honing my on-camera skills. But yeah, I want to do any of it. Like I just love, like I said at the beginning, I love storytelling, and I love the community and the experience of getting to be with people and the rehearsal process. It's in the collaboration. Like that's always been fun to me.
And how has this past year plus, as far as not being around people and creating the theater, how's it affected you as far as both like your art and your just personal experiences?
It's been really hard. I think in some ways I was happy to like take the pressure off and kind of like refocus on me. That was hard to do at the beginning because there were so many like casting challenges that I was, being told by my rep to participate in. But once that slowed down, at first it was like nice. And now I'm hitting a point where it's like, I haven't been on stage in a year and a half. And like, I don't know what to do about that. I don't know when I will be again. And so I think just trying to explore different avenues of creativity and try to focus on what I can. So I've been taking classes, and when I want to, like also not putting the pressure on myself to like have to be in classes. Like we're in a pandemic and there's a lot that we're already holding. So it's been, it's just been like this.
Have you been writing?
A little. It's something I'm scared of. So I'm slowly getting there. I produced my show. We did like a Zoom version in September still. So that was creative and fun. But yeah, writing and like I said, classes, and just trying to, I have such anxiety about auditioning. And I'm trying to work through that, because it's like I become a different actor when I'm auditioning versus when I have a role, and I have to find a way to bring this here, because it's getting in my way.
Have you taken your work to schools?
No, I need someone who's me, like who does my job. Like I would need a whole other person. I would love to. And it gets brought up a lot in board meetings, probably like twice a year. But I would literally, like, I would just need another person to helm that, because my tension is running a light and then also pursuing my acting and wanting to make sure I'm honoring both.
Yes.
So I don't become resentful of one.
Kelly, I wanted to ask you about the development of A Light, Dark Places. When you made the decision to actually move in this direction, Could you kind of explain to us the process that you went through to get there?
Yeah. So the first year was just a bit of an experiment. And you were involved in that. I hit a point where I felt like I was feeling so isolated. And in a lot of ways, my experience was unique because I was, I lost my dad at 22. It's young, and it was suicide, and that's a whole other bag. And I was finally hitting a point where I felt like I understand the statistics, and I hear little things, and I know people are struggling, and I know they're struggling, and I know that they've probably been affected. They probably know someone, or in their lifetime, they will know someone. And they say every death affects 100 people. And so I wanted to find a way like to talk about it. Like I was getting like, why aren't we talking about this? And I was getting that from people I know, and even family members who try to explain in a way like, oh, it's just this happened. It's like that, like it's so complex. And then also people like being insensitive and like asking, and maybe insensitive is wrong because they don't have the tools and they don't know what's appropriate. And so like asking things or saying things, and it's like, no, I'm not going to tell you how. Like, why would you ask me that? And so, or no, he wasn't murdered. Stop spreading that rumor around. Like was a rumor. Like it's so there's that, and then my love of theater. And so I thought, well, I wonder if there's a way to put on a show and then get people to talk about it. And at first I thought, well, we'll do a play that's already been written. And the only one I could think of was Night Mother, which was absolutely inappropriate for this. Yeah. I've had to leave, like I had a standing arrangement with a scene study teacher that when this one scene went up, then I left every time. I'm like, I can't sit here. And so that's when my friend Bruce and former teacher, he knows Jim Kleinman from
Playground. Yeah, Playground LA.
And so he got us in contact, and that's how, and so Jim sent out this call for plays. We decided to do like shorts. And we, we did one weekend and we did 5 plays, and it was in, the tiny studio, and the response was so positive, and it was very clear by Sunday night, when we were having to like get as close to breaking the fire, as you can. It just became clear, like, okay, we have to do this again. Like people need this. And we did it during National Suicide Prevention Week. And so, yeah, so that was like, okay, so we decided like that Sunday night, we're going to do it again next year. We're going to do it for 2 weekends, and they're going to move us into the larger theater. Right. And that was really great. And John Jack is so generous, and who runs Stella, and he's just always been really supportive, and he thinks it's great for the school, and so he lets us have the space, and that's such a big resource. And so we did the second year, and then that's the first year I wrote home to people saying, this is what I did, can you send money?
Yeah.
Help. Because the first year, we did it for probably like $600, and I'm always wanting, like every year I try to up the quality. I want to make a professional show, and so after that second year, when we knew it was going to keep going, that's when I decided to become a 501c3.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've been one since 2018.
Okay.
And that's been fun. And now I have a board, and we started adding one night show. So the year before the pandemic, so like March of 2019, we did our first cabaret night. 2 of those that year. And then last year we did a dance show, which was really cool. And then that was like the last event, but we had planned a stand-up comedy show and more cabaret nights, and as well as the theater. trying to think what else. I also took it to Texas in 2019.
Okay.
So that was really cool to get to bring it home and for
Yeah.
people to see it. And we cast locally and that and stuff. And that was a learning experience just because it's a different pool of actors and it's a different set of rules. And yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, a long-winded way to say kind of how we got there. I just felt it was important and people wanting it.
I know the main thing for me was coming in as a writer. Probably the most helpful thing was the guidelines you had for the plays. For me, because when I read about it, and I think we might have been passing each other in the hallway and talking about it first before I actually got the official announcement. But those guidelines were so helpful because it took a lot of the which way could this go to I know what I want to say. I found it extremely helpful for me about basically as I was going through this story and wanting to lock into these characters and making sure that it had that moment of hope in its approach and in its presentation. And I know for me is when I heard about it, my mind, like several things popped into my head. But when I started locking down and actually writing that 10-minute play, I had literally had it pasted to my wall. So I could make sure that when I'm outlining and everything and going through and making sure that the characters and, really trying to get as close as I could to revealing what this character was going through, enough to where the switch of hope allowed me to just lock into basically sticking with the spirit of what you wanted to say. And I think that was probably one of the most helpful things because that was a year that I did that. I did the Hollywood Short and Sweet Festival at the same. I also with Town Street. So I think I had like 5-10-minute plays going on within a 3-month segment. And as I was writing and developing it, it was one of those things. It was nice to go like, okay, here's some rules. And it also allowed me to focus in on what I wanted to say based upon my own experiences with dealing with suicide from friends and colleagues and fellow comics, and wanting to present something that allowed me to say what I wanted to say in a creative way. I found myself after writing it and watching it, this weight be lifted somewhat off me and seeing how it actually affected people that were in the audience. Obviously, that was just such an extremely helpful thing to do because it allowed you to kind of focus in on the overall scope of what you wanted to say with the festival.
Thank you. And thank you for taking that so seriously. Yasmine, what he's talking about is safe messaging is hugely important to me. And I always include guidelines from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention about safe practices when speaking about suicide and telling your story. And I include a little in my call, and as I every year I adjust it based on what I'm getting. Like I've had to add in bold, no guns, and that kind of thing. But thank you. That makes me feel really great, actually, because I have to tell you, I think about half the plays I can tell you did not bother to really look at the guidelines or thought maybe their play was the exception. Or so I try to make it very open too, of like, you can ask me, like, here's my email, like ask me if you have a question about content. Like I but we are here for a bigger purpose, I believe, than our typical, not typical, like, but this is, what I always tell my directors is that normally the play is the thing, but it's not. Safe messaging is the thing in this case. And every year I have to ask a playwright, hey, this is a little too here, can we change it? Can you help me out here? Like we're always having to adjust. And I tried my best to not cut anything prior to rehearsal, because sometimes in the right context, a joke kind of works, or, but it's just so important to me that like the people coming in, and I do it as a third party event. with the AFSP. And so they're there every night with a booth. And we donate a portion of the proceeds to them. And it's just really important to me that the people coming in are coming in and they know it's safe. They know it's not going to be depicted. They're not going to be triggered by a method being shown. Like, and I've learned there's really no need for it.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell such a great story without having someone, you know, have a bottle of pills in their hand, or
right.
You don't need it. It's you can still get it. You can still get the hope and the heart across to people of, hey, this is real, and we got to talk about it, and this is a safe environment for you to be here.
Mm-hmm.
It took away the idea of being exploitive with it.
Right.
You know, people focusing on the tragedy and using it for some other type of statement. Because I know, like with Hello, which was the first one that I did, I know that we went through a bunch of notes and like cutting things down and making things smoother, which I can't thank you enough, and the director, for allowing me to do that, because I started to see with each passage how it got more clear. Because when people were talking about, what are you writing now? I was like, I'm writing this thing for Light Dark Places and Suicide Prevention. Police are like, why? I'm like, because I think things need to, the emotional nature of anybody that has survived it in any shape, size, or form. And even though a lot of people have gone through that point of being survivors, it's also understanding that there's a certain mechanism in which you have to deal with the fact that you're here and how that affects other people emotionally. And you can always tell the people that haven't had those experiences and they're going for a certain thing that they want to say versus being affected by it and knowing how that affects the human existence and trying to create a sense of like, yes, there's that pain there. There's that pain that, you know, probably will never heal, or you'll find ways to basically deal with it. But at the same time, giving you a sense of that you're not alone. And that there is a community of people out there. I mean, I've been lucky that it's not affected me directly as far as a family member, but friends, especially, you know, within the past years, like Brody Stevens, who we were much closer many, many years ago, but I would run into Brody like every couple of months. And I think I probably saw him maybe a week and a half. And that kind of hit me because we were never really like in direct competition, but before Brody, we used to get on each other's nerves all the time. And I loved his energy. I loved his spirit. I loved him as a comic. And whenever we would see each other, it was kind of like this big hug and we talk about some stuff and joke around with each other and just like, you know, walk away. And it was hard to think about the fact that the last time I saw him was the last time that I saw him. And that's a hard thing to realize when I think about the hope and the joy and the things that we did do together. But it was one of those things about, I didn't think because we weren't as close that it would affect me the way that it did. But when it did, it was kind of like, oh, crap. And having a safe space for people to talk about that is something that we all need.
Yeah. It's always, for me, to finding the balance between, we're not doing a PSA. It's not what it is. It's not an after school special. So like, where's the creativity? Where's the acknowledgement? Like, we never want to not acknowledge it, but we always want to like have people being able to leave feeling hopeful and connected with that community and seen. Because like you're saying, I don't think it goes away. I think it gets smaller, or you learn how to kind of put it here maybe, but it's such a shock.
Yeah. Do you have any mental health professionals on hand during the rehearsal process, or available for the actors as they're going through this process? That's
something I've talked about doing, is maybe bringing on a professional. What we do is I have a representative from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And what they do is they come in and typically it's Ruth Golden. She's awesome. And, typically she comes in for the director. I have a meeting with the directors and I require them to go through the Talk Saves Lives training. We learn all the facts, we learn signs. Then I give a talk. And then after we cast, and after we cast, we do a reading. We have all five plays come together. We do a reading, try to create a sense of community within the cast. Because in the beginning, they were just showing up at tech and going, oh, hey. And we're more of an ensemble this way. But I also have them go through Ruth comes in again and does the Talk Saves Lives training. And then she's there and listens to all the plays. And so she can bring up any concerns. And then also the directors, I always give them her info.
Okay.
So if they have questions about something being appropriate or inappropriate. And then on top of that, I come in about a week before tech and I sit in and I watch. And that's when I take notes. That's when I see, okay, like I need to reach out to this writer and see like this line is too graphic, or I have to say, hey, I understand this is the reality, but you have to pull the actor back. Like we can't, and then I encourage the directors to find their way of like tying it up at the end. So a lot of them like have check-in circles after and just leave the work in the room. Yeah.
And I have to say, they are some of the most positively directed notes that I've ever received. I was going like, okay, this makes complete sense, and you can see where I'm going for it, and now I feel motivated to do these notes. It was a unique experience in so many different ways for me, and I know it was one of those things that as I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about this actually a couple of weeks ago, going back through and thinking about the process of writer and working with a group of people that I really don't normally work with, which is usually rare for me because most of the time, like I'm getting my work done at the theater company I'm doing tech for. So it was kind of nice to kind of sit back and then like watch it develop rather than being there as it develops day by day. But I have to say that the way that the notes were given, understanding the overall concept and really taking that seriously, and seeing, the audience reaction and seeing how it affected me as a writer as well. And wanting to thank you for just having that opportunity out there for people to really kind of put their creativity to good use. It was both years, the first 2 years that I was able to do it were just really helped me both as a writer and also as a person as well.
Thank you. I'm always nervous to give a note because it's your baby, and
right.
and yet I also know that you're not in the room and you're not getting to see it and see it on its feet, and then also I'm always having that eye towards what's best for these people coming in, and yeah, so I'm always like trying to find a way because I love so much the collaboration of this type of art that we do together, and so I always hope that it's going to be well received, and I try to give a suggestion, and then like obviously what I like is when I give a suggestion and if it's not exactly taken, but I see that, like you were saying, the spirit, like they understand what I was trying to say, and then they do it in their own way. Like that's exciting, and I love that back and forth. But it's sometimes I test people now before I select their plays to see if how we're gonna work together.
How they're gonna react to it, because
like, hey, and I still have other plays I can go to, but I'm like, hey, there's this, and it really lets me gauge too who we're working with, because that can be scary too when someone's unwilling to work together.
Right.
And I want to obviously like always like uplift your work and like and so it can be tricky, but I like it too. I think
Well, the one thing you can definitely tell from the notes that you're a champion of the work. And what you're trying to do is make the work better. And sometimes writers can't see that because they're blocked in their head, or people that just write. So they think that they're correct anyhow. But once you're in that room, like I used to tell my students, your work is not completely done until you get a reaction from the audience after they've experienced it. That's the only way you know if your work is complete. So getting that type of feedback in any shape, size, or form is always good for writer's growth.
It sounds like there's a workshop element to the whole festival. I mean, it's not just, oh, you submit a play and that version will be done. It sounds like there's a real process. No wonder you don't have time to do other things. I've been involved in so many festivals. I have never heard of something in which the artistic director is so wonderfully involved in the process. It sounds like you are very directly involved with every single play, and you take responsibility, and you're there for your team.
There's a couple things, but I mean, one of them just being like, I'm the one that's asked everyone to do this, and I want to make sure that I'm supporting everyone as best as I can, and letting everybody tell the best story they can, and championing them to like also get to have the experience of the change and the work.
Have these plays been anthologized in, are you thinking of I know here's another project for you, a publication every year of these plays from the festival?
I don't know how to do that, if I'm being honest, because so now, Ken, going forward, I actually have people sign an option agreement with me that I can do this play for, obviously I pay for it again, but for the year. That because I started realizing like they're going up around the same time. I'm like, no, wait. And I've asked that when the writer has the ability, if it's a first production, to make a note going forward that it was first produced by us, and which I think is fair.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't know how to make the next step, because some people don't like that. I can feel like and I also say too, like, hey, like if you have a great opportunity that comes up, talk to me. I'm going to tell you to do your play. Like I'm not going to like stop you from like being in like a higher profile thing than, because I want you to succeed too, but I also want to have the brand and like, so I don't know how to get to the next step, to be honest. I would love to. That's been talked about in board meetings as well, as like, because that would be maybe a way to get it to high schools or to college, the college level. And in the past, I've had like a couple college professors reach out and ask, but it never went anywhere. And so it's something to research.
What do you look for in a board member? I'm always curious what an artistic director looks for in a board member.
You know what? I look for people who know things that I don't know, and who have more experience than me, or a slightly different point of view than me, to challenge me. And that's what I look for, because I think I can always be learning from people who are older and who have been doing this for so much longer than me. And I can learn from my peers as well. And so that's always important to me. And people who have been affected and people who haven't been affected, but people who are passionate, who think that this is important work, and who show up and help. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, they're all people. Salim Aliaga's on the board with me, and he co-produced with me the first 2 years. And Bruce Katzman, who helped me kind of finesse my idea. He's the one I'd never produced, and he sat down with me and he helped me come up with my schedule of like getting things done, and gave me some money to do it, pitched in, and so, and it's just grown from there.
Kelly, I wanted to talk about just the expansion of A Light in Dark Places. Because I know, like, basically starting off with the Play Festival and some of the other avenues that you're moving with the group. Could you talk about that a little bit?
One of the things is this new interview photo series that you participated in, that I'm really excited about. And where we've been interviewing artists, and then we take like a series of portraits and doing your art type shots, and then we put them up on the website and on our social media. And it's kind of like Humans of New York meets Twola, just Love on Her Arms, but they do a lot of blogs. And that's been really fun to me because it's a way to involve more people, to bring back like familiar faces that we haven't like worked with in a while. It's a lower time commitment for everybody. And I think what's great is people get to read and see and different stories, and hopefully they see themselves, they connect, or they learn something from these, like all these points of view and all these different personal experiences. And so that I'm actually going to Texas. I'll be fully vaccinated, and then I'm going to Texas, and I'm going to interview some artists out there and connect that community back in as well. And so that's my new project, and also bringing the show back to Texas, continuing it out here. Yeah, I mean, who knows? But I'd love to get the one-offs going again, where we're doing these one-night events that are a little bit less geared towards suicide prevention and more geared towards like mental health, wellness, and celebration of mental health, and like how it doesn't have to be a word that's like down. We can laugh together and come together that way. And I'm working on developing some like short film stuff.
I can imagine that, especially at this time, there's such a need for this work. I mean, it's important at any time, but especially now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have had to slow down and really become aware of some things. And it's on top of just that's just the internal stuff, and then all these external things that are happening in the world, and on top of just having to like isolate a bit. And yeah, I do think it's important, and I think I'm hoping that in the end it'll be positive in terms of more people understanding that like you cannot ignore your mental health. It is just as important as your physical health, and it's what you have, like, you know, and it will come back. Like if you push things down, I've done it so many times. You push it down, it'll come out, and it's gonna be worse because it's, you know, been ignored for so long.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about the concept of self-care. It's a buzzword that a lot of people either embrace or they walk away from. But I think within the nature of its definition, because it's self-care, is about people understanding who they are. And it was one of the questions that I loved about when we did the photo shoot, about answering about, you know, what do you do as far as personal self-care? So I wanted to, actually, this is for all of us, some of the things that you do, Kelly, as far as when it comes to self-care.
I give myself a face mask. I just set aside time, like bath time for myself. I've gotten better at, for me, I think actually to boil it down to its finest point, like for me, self-care comes down to boundaries and making sure that I'm taking time for myself, and that I'm saying no, or I'm expressing, hey, this is what I need. You know, I've gotten really good at, you know, saying, hey, I'm going to go lay down in my room for 20 minutes. Then I'm fine. But maybe I just need to lay down and play on my phone or read my book, or, you know, it's going on walks and making sure, for me, like, I think for probably most people, but my mental health is so connected to my physical health. And so if I'm working out, if I'm getting a little active most days of the week, that's really helpful to me. And just even seeing the sun for, you know, 10 minutes or whatever, those are the main ones for me. And face masks, I don't know why, but I just think that they're the most soothing thing, and I feel so like, I can't describe it, I just feel cute.
That's so great.
What about you, Yasmine?
I think for me, getting the rest that I need. I know before all this, I was not. I was sort of running myself ragged. I thought I was taking care of myself, and I don't think I really was, because I never stopped. So it's to stop and to walk and to be outside and to rest when I need to rest and to be quiet when I need to be quiet. And just self-reflection.
For me, when it comes to self-care, my main thing is walking. I mean, I try and spend about 6 miles a week where that's focused, concentrated walking, where I'm saying I'm definitely going to do a mile here, I'm going to do a mile here, or I'll walk like, a mile to go to the grocery store, then come back. I mean, I'm in the middle of this editing project, and there's a Staples that's about maybe a mile and a half away from me. So I just walk there, grab the stuff that I need, and walk back rather than taking the train or, using my car. And that's been extremely helpful because I've been able to like explore this neighborhood in areas that I probably would not have. And seeing a couple of places, which the sad thing is like running into restaurants. I said, oh, if that wasn't closed, I would have loved to have gone there a year and a half ago.
What are your plans for your company and the festival through this new lens with Zoom? What for 2021-22, what are you envisioning right now?
I'm hopeful that we will be in the theater by September. If it's some sort of maybe like half audience or masked audience, probably would not do the reception. We normally always do a reception so people can mingle. It's a big question mark right now that I feel like until about the end of June, if we have some time after our opening, I'll have a better idea of kind of what is socially responsible and possible. So I don't know. I don't know that I want to do a whole Zoom production again. But there were benefits, like people in Bolivia got to watch it who were connected, and all the people in Texas got to watch it, and grandparents in Florida. So I mean that was nice. It's just a big question mark for me. I don't know, because I want to do so much of what I do is about building community.
Right.
And it's hard. It's hard to do it online.
Yeah.
Especially like I feel like this far in, like people are tired.
Yes.
So I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm hopeful.
And how do you find your plays and your directors and your actors? Where do you send calls, or are these are I guess only local Los Angeles writers, actors, directors?
No, the writers can come from anywhere. I send them out. I honestly, the last 2 years, I haven't sent them out because they just get sent out, I've learned. And part of that's just overwhelmed depression and laziness on my part. And I would like to reach more, but yeah, we have people submit from all over the States and even like different countries. And I'm totally fine with that. I think it should be open to everybody, which is, another thing, like we keep it free to submit for like the first 2 months. And then we just do like an extended deadline. And that mainly just keeps us from being flooded with 50 plays that are mildly connected to the subject the night of. Like it just kind of helps us there. And and then with directors, it's typically people I know. People who've expressed interest or whose work I admire. I try to include people from different theater companies so as to kind of bridge the gap a bit. And that's fun. Sometimes I very rarely have a play where I'm like, I need to ask this person to direct it. Like typically what I do is I send the directors all 5 plays, and I tell them to give me their top 3 picks, and that I will try to get them their first or their second. And I do that too to keep it community. I don't want someone joining the festival just because they like a play. Like I want someone joining the festival because they want to champion the message and like reach people. And I think it really helps get everyone on the same page from the beginning of like, we're a team, and we're picking up, where we're needed.
And do you do talkbacks afterwards? You do? Okay.
Yeah, we do them on Saturdays. They're not, well, we did it online. We did it every night.
Right.
But yeah, we do it on Saturdays because not everybody, some people hate them. Some people love them. So we just advertise them. We normally do, it's normally a 2-weekend run. We do the first Sundays of Pay What You Can. And then we do Saturdays our talkbacks. And that's always fun. We have Ruth join us with AFSP. And it's me, Ruth, and the directors. Like one of the writers joined us the last one because he was also a therapist. But it's people who've gone through the training. And the reason I don't bring the actors out, even though they would obviously add value, one, it's normally a 15, 16 person cast. And two, it keeps the conversation from going into, I loved your performance.
Right. Interesting. Have you been surprised with any talkbacks from the audience? Any epiphanies? Any real moments?
I had someone ask me once, how do I take care of myself when I'm reading the plays? And I was really thrown by that. I was like, girl, I don't. Like, what are you talking about? I do now. I actually don't read all the plays anymore. They narrow it for me. I have groups and they narrow it down because it was taking like a huge toll on my mental health.
Yes. But that's a great question.
It was a really great question that I was very surprised by. A lot of times, like parents will ask questions, and that's nice. We sometimes get someone who gives us pushback or disagrees and with something, and so that's delicate. And but again, it's why Ruth is there with the facts. And I tell them we play a game. Like it's try to bunt the question over to Ruth, like so we get as much mental health info out as we can. And so it's fun.
And the organization you work with is the
American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We do it as a third party event. So, and they're nice. They like put our stuff out and invite people. And like I said, they come and they volunteer. So we always have a booth in case someone is triggered or wants more information. So they have that. And then we like keep that slightly separate from the reception so people can go and have privacy. And we do the reception because we don't want anyone to be pushed out the door.
How many festivals have you done so far?
But 5, but one was online. So last year was the 5th year. Yeah.
5. Oh, wow.
And then plus 1 in Dallas. So I guess 6.
That's amazing. Listening to your story, I'm just amazed that you had this, idea and it's just grown into this tremendous project that's affected so many people and has helped so many people. It just sounds like such a gift to people in need who are creative and it's the message, as you said. It's not about the show, it's the message, it's how we can help people and to discuss this very sensitive topic in a very safe space. I applaud you. I've never heard of such a thing that that you created something and it sounds tremendous.
Thank you.
It really does.
Kelly, what do you think is the most important thing you learned about yourself while doing this festival?
I think I've learned that I've learned to accept that healing is not linear. I've learned to accept that I experienced a trauma that doesn't define me, but that I do have to I do experience, and I will probably continue in a way to experience it. And I've learned how I make such a I guess it's not one thing. I just also what I've learned is that I don't have to shoulder everything. Like people want to help, so let them help. And that can be as simple as like literally like physically helping me like run the show or wanting to be there emotionally for me. Like I don't have to just like run the whole thing being the show or myself. Like I can ask for help. And that's always been hard.
And Kelly, how can people reach you and also A Light in Dark Places?
Well, they can go to our website, which is alightindarkplaces.org. Follow us on Instagram at A Light in Dark Places. And then they can email at info@alightindarkplaces.org. My email's on the website. It's KELLR@gmail.com. And I'm on Instagram if you want goofy stuff.
Kelly, could you tell us about some other resources that people could use when it comes to the idea of suicide prevention?
Yes, so the AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, on their website, afsp.org, they have a lot of resources and local resources, and as well as resources specific for different communities. And so they have like LGBTQ, they have Black mental health, they have Indigenous people, Latino people, and as well as just the regular hotlines that are good for everybody. Suicide prevention hotline number is 1-800-273-8255. And you can also use the crisis text line, and you just text START to 741-741. And someone will be there to talk you through it if you're in crisis. But those resources, those numbers are also really good for if you're worried about someone who's in crisis. So you can also use those to get advice and get taught to how to best help a friend. And then if something's immediate and someone has the means of hurting themselves immediately in the moment, call 911.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful name, A Light in Dark Places.
Thank you. It's based on a Tolkien quote. Yeah. And that has some special, yeah, that was one of my dad's favorites. So it was kind of cool to find a way to thread that in.
Thank you for sharing that. Until next time.
Hope that doesn't look weird with a plant growing out of my hair.
I like it. It's very, like a very natural, environmental guy.